My name is Warren Stewart, and today I'm going to be talking about the true stance of the Christian church as it pertains to feminism. It was Paul's advice in 1 Timothy 2:12, in which he writes, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man, she must be silent." And again in verses like Ephesians 5:22, "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord." Are these God-breathed commands against women's liberties? Or are these contextual advices given to a certain people at a certain time that may or may not pertain to us directly in this day and age? This topic is exceedingly important today because of the heightened feminist movement in today's culture. As we move forward, the Christian church is often seen as a stronghold against feminist liberties, and this is not a true statement. I'm a Christian, and I strive every day to become more like Christ and tell others about the joyful, peaceful, and redemptive life that He has paved the way for us here and now. However, because the church is being pigeonholed into being anti-feminist, I have had to read extensively on the topic to understand the truth and context of the Bible, which I represent. The Bible and all of its passages, which I believe to be God-breathed, is a text which advocates the freedom of all people, all races, and for the sake of the speech, all genders. I will now validate this statement through the points that first, we need to understand the context of the verses that appear controversial. We need to look at the gospel Jesus preached, and we need to consider what the church is already doing to promote feminism today. Let's take a deeper look at these points, starting with understanding context. A clear understanding of biblical context leads to a tearing down of the perceived anti-feminist meaning in the Bible. As stated before, Paul writes to Timothy stating, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over men. She must be silent." During this time period, the Christian church was the first place where men, women, and even slaves were able to worship in the same gathering. God, throughout history, has met us where we are. In His perfect design, we would all be able to worship, work, and fellowship in complete harmony, but sin ruined that. So Paul's prescription to Timothy was not based on hate, but was meant to establish order for the time being. The men in the church were having a hard enough time getting over the fact the women were worshiping with them and were not ready because of their sin to be led by women in this situation. In another angle, Craig S. Keener writes in his article, "Was Paul for or against women in ministry?" This became that because women were were new to the church, much of their understanding and in turn their teaching was not fully mature. It is likely that most women in the Ephesian church had limited training in church theology, and their interest in false doctrine was proving to be dangerous. There is no evidence in the text that Paul was writing to establish permanent restriction on all women for all time. And he even points out passages where Paul affirms women in ministry. Now let's examine what Jesus and the Son of God has to say about equality in women. Jesus never preached a disparity between men and women. Instead, He insisted that all were welcome and valuable in the kingdom. Anne Graham Lotz provides an in-depth list of all the ways God has clearly pronounced His stance on the equality of women in her article, "The Bible is Crystal Clear on Gender Equality." Jesus' first miracle was performed in response to the plea of His mother. Jesus' first revelation of Himself as the Messiah was to women. His greatest miracle was performed at the request of women. The list goes on and on. Sarah Bessey writes in her book, "She is Feminist." People want black and white answers, but Scripture is a rainbow arc across a stormy sky. We are finite people often looking for finite answers, but Jesus is eternal and sees the bigger picture. God responds to our misunderstandings with love and equality for everyone. Lastly, let's look at what the Christian church is doing today to promote gender equality. Christians all over the world are standing in the gap, raising money, and preaching the gospel of God's love to women all over the world. Right now, the Agape International Missions Group is working to stop sex trafficking in Cambodia. As we speak, the Covenant House is taking in women and children off the street. Christian women are writing books, teaching, preaching, leading men, women, and children to the kingdom of God. These women would not be able to accomplish this supernatural love they are spreading if the text that they represent were not the text of love and equality for all creation. Sarah Bessey also writes, "It's a scary thing, a life-changing, paradigm-shifting thing You'll honestly look at yourself and ask this question: am I moving with God to rescue, restore, and redeem humanity? Or am I clinging fast, teeth clenching to an imperfect world habit and cultural customs, in full knowledge of the injustice and imperfections, living at odds with God's dream for his daughters and sons? It is this very injustice or imperfections that the Christian church is standing up and doing something about. The gospel is anything but a message of bondage. It is a love letter and a call to freedom. To wrap it all up, the fact of the matter is that we need to understand the context of the verses that appear controversial. We need to look at the gospel Jesus preached, and we need to consider what the church is already doing to promote feminism today. The Bible in all of its passages, which I believe to be God-breathed, is a text which advocates the freedom of all people, all races, and for the sake of this speech, all genders. Make a difference, change the social narrative, and turn to the gospel of Christ as you strive to create freedom and equality for women today. Is the Bible an anti-feminist text? Really read it. I promise you won't be disappointed.